welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be showing you a demo of how to create an approval process to automate the way records get approved in your company. Imagine you're selling consulting projects and you want to set an approval process in case some sales representative want to sell a consulting project with a profitability under 50%. In order to do this, we can create an approval process in Salesforce to automate the entire process. So I'm going to create a demo right now to show you how to do it. Before you can set it up, we need to create a few things. I already did it, so I'm going to walk you through what I did so we don't waste any time. So first, you can include here the items to approve component from here from page setup. You can drag and drop the component from the list on the left. Okay, so just type items and it will show up over there. Just drag and drop it wherever you want. Then you will need to create some email templates. You can do that from setup. You just type email, create email templates, and from here you can set up the emails we will use later on. We are going to use these templates to notify the approvers and the submitters of the records that either there is an action required or as a confirmation that the record has been submitted for approval. And then finally, from Object Manager, I created a few fields on the opportunity object. I created the percentage field to trigger the process. Then I created a big list field so you can track in which stage of the process the record is. And finally, I created two email fields so we can record the email or the opportunity owner manager's email and then the user that submit the record for approval email as well. So we can later on email to those email addresses. After you do that, you're all set. So I'm going to start creating the approval process. So from here, you're going to look for the approval process under process automation feature. First of all, you will need to select which object are you creating the approval process for. In this case, it's going to be opportunity. And you're going to use the standard setup wizard. Let's name the process CI percentage. All right. And let's include a description as a best practice. Okay. So in our case, we are going to define as the entry criteria. In other words, not all the records, not all the opportunity records are going to enter the approval process. In this example, I'm just creating an approval process for the records which CCI percentage is under 50%. So we are going to define that now. CCI percentage is a percentage field, so here we don't need to divide by 100 to get the value. All right, so step number 3, we are going to define who will be the approver of the record. In our case, we are going to select the manager, or you can here eventually select a new hierarchical relationship in case you will need to define any other user that is not the manager to approve the record. Okay, and here we are going to use the approver field of the opportunity owner. In some cases, there will be users submitting the record for approvals that are not the owners of the record, but you still want to route the approval to the manager of the opportunity owner rather than the manager of the user that submits the record for approval. Okay, so that's what we are doing with this checkbox. And finally, who can edit the record after you submit it for approval? We are going to select admins only. The records will get locked after you submit them for approval. So we are going to select that only admins can edit the record after this has been done. And it makes sense because you don't want anybody to change any information while somebody, a manager, is reviewing that record. We are going to select one of the email templates we created before. Here you need to select the fields that will appear in the approval page layout. So let's select some of them. Opportunity name, opportunity owner. Let's select amount, CCI. Let's select win probability, stage. Okay. This will be enough by now. Just here, make sure you select all the useful fields you consider necessary. We're going to include the approval history uh, list in the page layout. And we are going to keep the security settings as it is. Okay, so which user is going to be the submitter of the record is what we need to define next. Well, here we have some options, both rules, roles, fronts, and subs, and then users. We're going to keep owners for this opportunity owner for this demo. We're going to add the submit for approval button and approval history related list to the page layout, so you will be able to see all the changes when it comes to approval process, and also you will see the submit for approval button at the top of the record. And we are going to here allow submitters to recall the process. This will allow them to, well, recall the the approval process in case they need to change something. The idea is that your users don't abuse of this functionality. I will show you later on that you can report on approval processes to see if there is a user or a group of users constantly recalling records, which can be a bad practice. So you could reinforce or create some kind of training for them specifically. All right. And from here, we are going to select the second option. We are not going to create approval steps now, so I want to show you the how the overall process looks. So here we have the details of what we've just done. Then what we'll need to do next is to define the initial submission actions, the approval steps that we need to define before we can activate the process. Then we have here final approval actions, rejection actions, and recall actions. Okay, so let's define now the initial submission action. So what is going to happen after a user clicks on the submit for approval button? As you can see over here, the record will get locked. Okay, so what we need to do next is to send some email alerts. We need to email the opportunity owner manager. I already created these templates, like I said before. Okay. All right. So, as I said before, I also created two email fields on the opportunity object. So, in this case, we are going to use the recipient type email field so we can find the manager and the submitter email address. In this case, these email alerts should be routed to the opportunity owner manager. So we are going to use that field here. We are going to save. Okay, so we already have another step over here. Next, we need to notify the submitter that the record was successfully submitted for approval. So let's create that email alert too. I'm going to use the same template. I think I would need to create an additional email template. Now I'm not gonna do it so this video doesn't get too long. But remember, you need to use a different template to notify the user that submits the record that it was successfully submitted for approval. So we are going to find the submitter email. This is the other field I created before creating the approval process. Okay, let's click on save. All right. So next we need to edit the opportunity approval status. So we are going to create a field update. All right. So this was the big list field I created before. We're going to select reevaluate workflow rules after field change in case you have any validation rule connected to this process, as I would advise you to do later on. We need to reevaluate if there is some kind of additional automation that triggers based on this field app. Um, okay, and here we are going to select pending. So after a user submit the records for approval, the record approval status is going to switch or turn into pending status. Okay, next we need to set up, or we need to record the manager opportunity owner manager email address. So we need to create also a field update field for action. So again, this is the other field I created at the beginning. We are going to update the the opportunity owner manager's email address, so we can email to that, or we can confirm or request to that manager approval by email. In this case, it's optional because I don't have any workflow or any additional automation trigger that triggers based on these fields, but I would advise you to select it in case you might want to build something on top of this. Um, okay, then we are going to use a formula to set up this field. And let's find the opportunity owner manager email. Opportunity owner manager, and here email. So basically, when the process triggers, when there is a record that triggers the approval process, we are going to populate this field. That's what we are doing right now. Let's create save. Okay, and finally, we need to create one more to capture the user that submits the user's email that submits the record for approval. Set set user email. We are going to update the last field we created. Um, owner main delivery submit your email over here. Okay, we are going to use a formula to include the field user email. Okay, my bad. User email. Okay, we're set. Okay, so we are done with the initial submission actions. Now we need to create approval steps. In this case, I'm going to create a very simple approval process with only one step, but eventually this can get quite complicated if there are different, let's say you have or you sell different type of products for which you could create eventually different approval processes. You can have more than one approval process by object, or you can start creating different um, criteria steps and criterias to build an approval process tree. So in this case, I'm going to keep it simple, just to one stage. Um, okay. So as you can see, it says step number one. If you create more steps, then eventually you will get different. It will show over there as well. So in our case, all the records should enter this step. So remember that at the beginning we said the criteria of opportunities under 50% CCI percentage. Okay. Eventually, you could also here create the criteria CCI percentage less than 50. Okay. So here you can select what happens when the criteria are met. Else, so if this doesn't happen, if these criteria are not met, in our case, we are going to approve the record. So, in other words, and again, we are only, or the records that, or the records which opportunity CCI percentage is under 50% are the only ones that are going to enter this process. Okay. So here we are going to select the approver. As we said before, in this case, we are going to route the approval to the opportunity owner manager. Again, this is important. It's not the user that submit. Not, it's not the manager of the user that submits the record for approval, but the manager of the opportunity owner in this case. And in just in case the manager is on time, pay time off, sick leave, or it's not available at the moment, we are going to grant the delegated approval also the ability to approve this record. Okay. All right. So the next three things we need to do is to define what happens after the record gets approved, after the record gets rejected, or after the user recalls the record. Okay. So let's start with the final approval actions. What we need to do here is to basically update, let's say, set approval approved. We're going to set the approval status field to approved. All right. Then we are going to unlock the record. This again will depend on what actions do you need to perform after this gets approved. In some cases, you might need to keep the record locked, or in some other cases, you might need to, or the record, in cases the opportunity, you might need to follow different steps in order or before it gets closed as won or lost. So in this case, I'm just assuming we will need to perform some further actions on the record. So we're going to unlock the record for editing. And finally, we are going to notify uh, okay. We're going to select one of the email templates I created at the beginning. We are going to notify here the submitter. Now we are going to define the final rejection action. So in case the manager does not approve, in this case, the CCI percentage request, we are going to again here, well, unlock the record for editing is already set. So we are going to update the status. Okay. All right. And finally, we are going to notify also the user that submitted the record. And now we need to set up the recall actions. In this case, we are going to update the field, the state approval status field. And well, here we could eventually email the user that submits the record, but in this case, since it's the same user that I'm assuming is going to recall the record, I'm not going to do it. If there is another user that might do it, then I would advise you to notify also the user that submitted the record for approval. All right. So let's recall a little bit what we did before. Before you create an approval process, you will need to work with all the users involved in this process in order to define which are the criteria that will need to trigger the records for approval. After you gather all the requirements, you can start designing your process in a just in a white canvas, and drafting it in Salesforce in your sandbox org. Then after that, you can start creating the initial submission actions, the steps, final rejection actions, final approval actions, and recall actions in the end. Remember, before rolling this out to your users, to activate it. Okay. And then test all the different possible scenarios to check if it works. Okay. Um, so that's pretty much it. Let me show you another feature. It might be useful. So what you can do also here from reports is you can create actually a different report type. You need to use the process instance and process instance node as main and child objects in order to create um, a report that will allow you to track in which part of the process the records are. So here you see an example. So you can use the process instance object and then the process instance node in order to report. Let's create, let's submit the record for approval. Um, okay. Okay. Here, uh, let's say CCI percentage is under 35%. Please review. Okay. So we're gonna submit the record for approval. We get the confirmation over there. So let's see if we can. Okay, so you can see here that this report is going to show you in which status of the entire approval process your record is, so you can track all the different stages. You can also here start controlling your users by creating or by checking the metrics over here. You have step start date, step completed date, so you can see if there are users, so group of users that need some kind of reinforcement in order to be compliant with some kind of internal policy in terms of what's the timing they have to approve or reject the record, for example. All right, that's pretty much it on my side. I hope I was clear enough, and I will see you in the next video.